Hey guys, this is Savannah from earthandwater.co. Today let's talk about trusting your intuition. So let's start with what is our intuition, because honestly it can be collectively a couple of things. So for one, it's a gut feeling. It's the same thing as when people tell you to follow your heart or trust your heart. Which, stopping right there, we have scientifically found that tens of thousands of neurons, like in your brain, also present in your heart and gut. So hey, maybe we can actually think with more than just our heads, and really definitely probably should. But intuition is also that inner knowing that you get, especially... I saw this thing one time. Somebody explained intuition as being the millisecond moment of space in between thoughts. But all in all, it is definitely most directly linked to your third eye, right? Our center of psychic abilities. Now we're kind of getting on the crazy train a little bit, right? Do we believe in psychics? I'd say that I definitely do to an extent. There is definitely a lot of knowledge that we're gaining recently in the scientific world that lends to these being possible. But with that, I also need you to take it with a grain of salt and be extremely cautious, because even though I'd go as far as to say, yeah, it's a thing, we can believe in that. For every legitimate one you find, you're going to find about 25. I'm hesitant to use the word scammers because most of them don't even realize they're doing it, and scammer kind of feels like they're intentionally doing it, which some definitely are. Others are not. Others are just misguided and stuff. But anyway, proceed with caution. Always, in all things. Scientifically speaking, there's this thing that people have referred to as the field for the past, 70, 100 years, something like. And, a lot of scientists have laughed at it, for sure. But also, it keeps on proving its existence through certain experiments and whatnot, to the point to where they're beginning to be like, okay, you know what, this is a thing. An example of this would be quantum entanglement, where you take two particles that used to be connected, and it doesn't matter how far apart you move them. If you do something to one, the other is affected simultaneously, immediately, as if it were happening to it as well. And if we take all of this and we apply it to psychic abilities, such as predicting things, being able to sense things, knowing things that you wouldn't be able to perceive through your other physical senses, it makes sense that this is possible because through the field, everything is connected. And, everything is energy. Everything is just vibrating energy held together through forces, unseen forces, like literally unseen forces, like magnetic forces, gravity, those types of things. So if through the field, and, I feel like they're calling it something different these days. Okay, I Googled it. It says, quantum mechanics states that the universe is made up of space with fields of vibration, interconnected, unified, and in constant communication, where distance and time are of no consequence. One end of the universe moves connected and in the relationship to the other end and everything in between. Whoa. Cool freaking stuff, right? So on one hand, everything is connected in ways that we could not possibly begin to really wrap our heads around. On the other hand, we can understand that we are connected, our body is connected to the sky via the air in our lungs. Every particle there's no empty space. Separation is just an illusion. Empty space is just an illusion. Every fish in the sea is connected to every other fish in the sea via the water, right? Every molecule touching itself, touching the ones next to it, going on forever and ever. So just like quantum entanglement, all of these molecules, these fragments, are in constant communication with one another. So it stands to reason that since we are made up of all of these things, we could potentially be able to tap into this constant communication and understand it, which we would understand it through the way that we're already used to kind of understanding the world and interpreting things. So like seeing images or thinking things or hearing things and stuff like that. And then just like some of us are more naturally inclined to sports, or to writing, or to drawing, or to, whatever our talents are, some of us, if we could do this, would be more naturally inclined to these abilities and deciphering them and understanding them and utilizing them. But also, just like maybe some of us are not born naturally with those talents, and, when we get into stuff like this, honestly, being born with those talents isn't always a good thing, because we live in a very physical world. It's very, clear-cut, science-y, whatnot, physical. And if things don't fit into that category, then we start calling people crazy. And, we could arguably theorize that this is exactly what's going on with people who have schizophrenia. But, I don't know. But anyway, just because you're not naturally talented in an area doesn't mean that you can't practice and work really hard to, improve. We can all learn how to catch a ball if we have one thrown to us enough. We can all pretty well learn how to ride a bike if we practice. We can learn how to swim if we try. So we all have the natural capabilities to be able to tap into our intuition, even if it's not obvious. And most of the time it's not obvious because, we live in this physical world that has always taught us that such things are silly and ridiculous. And my standpoint on this, along with a lot of other things in this area, has always been like, well, if it is silly and ridiculous, at least I'm not bored. We were given the gift of our imaginations for a reason. Might as well utilize them. Who cares if I can't actually enchant my pinky ring for good communication? I can pretend it is, and then every time I put on my pinky ring, I'm like, yes, I'm a better communicator now, which is going to give me more confidence just subconsciously. It's all mind games. In this sense, we're going to have to make decisions in life anyway. We might as well just, instead of running through all of and that's a good way to make decisions for sure, is running through all of the options and the pros and cons and stuff. But you know what? Probably more on towards the bigger decision-making end of things, like if you're buying a house or a vehicle or trying to decide when to plan a wedding, then sure, write out the pros and cons and all of that. But for the most part, we make 1,000 decisions a day. Probably not 1,000. At least 50, right? We gotta decide what to wear, decide what to eat, decide where to go sometimes, decide what we're taking with us, decide to go left or right, decide what music to listen to, what podcast episode. Thanks for choosing this one. And decision fatigue is a very real thing, okay? Especially for people who are in positions of leadership, such as parents or entrepreneurs, people who have businesses. Decision fatigue is, oh my gosh, is it real? Steve Jobs said that he wore the same outfit all the time, every day. He just had a little cartoon character closet because that took one less decision off of his plate. Well, utilizing your intuition can take decisions off your plate as well, which lessens the decision fatigue. And really all you have to do to practice is when you are met with a decision that needs to be had, you just pick something and go for it. Okay, don't think, you just go. You just pick something and go. People talk about this all the time. It's really all you have to do. But we know that, right? So we're here to, how do we trust it? After all, the whole episode is about trusting your intuition, and I have not even touched on how to do that yet. But all the other stuff is important too. More often than not, we are taught how to not trust ourselves. If you pay attention to children, the vast majority of them know exactly what they want, and they just go for it without thinking at all. And as adults, for sure, we could be like, hold on a second, they're children, and that's how they get hurt. Which, yes, and you probably don't have to worry about that as an adult as much because you have the wisdom of life experience to go with that, right? So you're less likely to make rash decisions that are going to put yourself in harm, like children are. But that's probably one of the leading reasons to how we teach, or why we end up teaching children to not trust themselves. Most of the time when we're teaching children to not trust themselves, that's not what we're trying to do. We're just trying to keep them safe, and we know better than they do, sure. In which case, I just have to, ask you to be cautious and mindful of how you're going about these situations. Keeping everyone safe is absolutely our priority, but we want to do it in a way that explains to them that, they don't know everything yet. They are still children. And the way I explain it to my kids is like, you're level 7, okay? You are level 7 in life, And you're still working on attaining the skill sets that like a level 32 would have, okay? So as a level 32 who has mastered this particular subject, the subject being just, how not to die or get injured, perhaps it would be in your level 7 best interest to listen to the level 32 in this particular scenario. If you're a level 7, you don't just go fight the dragon, right? But if you're a level 32, okay. Maybe we won't die with one hit on that one. Maybe our armor's leveled up at this point. I'm definitely working off the visions of Skyrim I have in my head. So yeah, most people are, we're accidentally teaching our children how to not trust their intuition and their decisions and all of that in an effort to keep them safe. But there is definitely a whole section of people who, and I'm not going to say are control freaks, like there's something innately evil or anything. There are definitely controlling narcissists and abusers and whatnot, and that could be a factor in it as well. But how many of us had very controlling parents, probably out of their own trauma from their own childhood where they had no control over things, right? In which case, we're looking at generational trauma again, and being asked to trace back these roots to why we don't trust our intuition in the first place, okay? Because there can be a ton of thousand reasons. As many reasons, as many ways that the world is vast, there can be for why you have landed on this place to where you don't trust yourself. Perhaps you're noticing patterns in your life and you're like, whoa, actually, I've made this particular decision several times in my life and it never went well. I am not good at this decision. What am I doing? I don't want this to blow up in my face again. Therefore, I don't trust myself. To which I would say that's absolutely wonderful that you are aware of the situation and the pattern that you are now cautious of. And that's what we want to do, is be cautious. For one, I love journaling. I love writing things down. We could do a whole episode on why that's so great of a tool to work through all of these things. But first and foremost, take your piece of paper, get a notebook, get a really pretty notebook, open it up to either the first page or a completely random page, and write down the decision at hand and what your initial gut reaction was to it. Was it a, yeah, straight off? Or was it a, oh no, straight off? Or was it a, yeah, wait a minute? That's important. And honestly, if it was a no straight off, accept that as a no straight off and move on with your life. There's 1,000 other things to be doing, there are millions other things to be worrying about in this world. You're done. You made that decision. Thank you, next. Now, if it's a yeah, and you feel pretty good about that, then just ride that. Okay, go for it. If it's a, yeah, wait a minute, then it's probably still a yeah, but obviously we're picking up on some doubts or some caution. In which case, I want you to journal out all of that. It doesn't have to be sentences. It doesn't have to be proper English. It doesn't have to be spelled correctly. This is for you, between you and you. So we're throwing all sorts of perfectionism out the window. We don't need that. That's holding us back. You can simply write down a bullet point list of pros and cons, yeses and nos, whys, analyze it, sit there with it. Why are you doubting yourself on this? Just trace it back to the roots that it has somewhere in there. No one knows your past and your story like you do. I can sit here and facilitate all day long, but it's ultimately up to you to analyze your past, your relationships, their lives, and how they have impacted you with their thought processes and beliefs and decisions. You cannot work on other people's problems for them, but you can identify the fact that the problem you are faced with came from them and is not actually yours, and you can just sever that tie real fast. I say real fast. Some things are going to take gnawing at and sawing at for a little bit before it actually, because as long as it has been there and been present within you and your decision making processes and your belief systems, the more solid and solidified it's going to become, which means the harder it's going to be to separate yourself from it. Can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? Well, we can, it just takes a little bit more work. Which is why it's best to really focus on the children around you that you are already interacting with and paying attention to how you interact with them so that they don't have to work as hard as we have to work to fix our issues. And I'm using the word issues very loosely here. It's just a programming. It's reprogramming the belief system, the mindset, the decision-making process, because the first uploaded programming didn't quite jive with the tasks you were trying to do, right? We want X, Y, and Z in life, and we can't get to X, Y, and Z without reworking the programming that we have, because, you know, like any other application on your phone, there's going to be some things that you can copy and paste in, and then other applications you can't copy and paste in, right? You can't edit a video with Photoshop, right? Can you? I don't think you can. You used to could not, for sure. So unless they've made some astounding, but I mean, I haven't used it in like 10 years. So anyway, moving on. For analogy purposes, you can't do that. To be able to edit your video, you have to get a video editing application or update your photo editing software to be able to process video, right? And to do that, you have to rewrite the code. In order to make the new code work properly with the old code, you have to analyze it. You have to decide what's missing and what needs to be updated and what needs to be replaced entirely. So yeah, those are my 3 tips. Follow the emotional guidance system, and just if it's a yeah or if it's a nah, then you follow that. And start small, you know, on decisions that don't matter, and just notice when they work out just fine. Which also lends to letting go of perfectionism, because we want to control everything, especially if we couldn't control things when we were younger. But we're driving ourselves into the ground trying to make all of the decisions about all of the things and really get that mental power to every single thing that we come in contact with, right? Decision fatigue. So we have to learn how to let go and choose which things are really worth our mental power and which ones aren't. Otherwise, just pick where you want to go eat tonight. Throw something out there and trust it. What outfit you're going to wear today? Just close your eyes, reach your hand in there, and pull something out. If it's not an acceptable solution, then maybe we need to discuss cleaning out the closet. You know, I'm a huge advocate of minimalism and stuff, and always going through everything that you have and getting rid of anything that's not of immediate use, because clutter, as well as making room for that you want to manifest to come into being. Anyway, journaling as well. Really sitting with and looking at everything that is holding you back and why. Where did it come from? How deeply can we dissect this until we are the root of the root of the root, without blame, without anger? It is what it is at this point. How can we move forward? If you're interested, I think I mentioned this at the beginning of the episode, but it is a Third Eye Chakra thing. So any Third Eye Chakra healing stuff is going to be great for that. Which, if you're unfamiliar with the chakras, I have a free chakra course, and people will fight you. They'll be like, it's not free, you have to put in your email address. I mean, yeah, but I mean, it is what it is, okay? Teachable keeps raising prices, and people keep kicking me off of platforms that I have my content on. So you know what? Give me your email address, and I'll just send it directly to you, so we don't have to worry about all these third parties changing the rules on us. No big deal. It's not like you can unsubscribe anytime you want. But anyway, I'm not trying to sound angry. I'm not. I don't care. If you want it, that's what you gotta do to get it. If you don't want it, it was fun talking to you. I'll talk to you later. But yeah, all of you, I'll talk to you later. Take a deep belly breath, relax your face and shoulders. Let's slow everything down and sit with a few minutes of meditation music to just, you know, exist. And maybe contemplate that decision that you're trying to make or want to make. And you probably already know the answer to it, okay? You just gotta let your mind lies to you, okay? It lies to you. It's trying to keep you safe. Your gut and your heart are much more trustworthy than your head. Love you. Namaste. Like and subscribe or comment or whatever you do these days. Mwah.